Welcome everybody. My name is Deva Presence with Design Recline, Permaculture Made Easy. I am so thrilled. It's so good to have you here with me in many parts of the world, sharing about what we can do to create a regenerative living. And so, even though you may be new to this, I'm here to help you see how easy it is, see how we can just start applying right away and start making this a part of our life. If this is something you've been studying for a while, maybe you're taking this course as a refresher because you've already done courses like this or been reading lots of permaculture books, fantastic. In this design course, all of our videos will be showing real live examples of people actually practicing various forms of permaculture, organic farming. So these real live examples are a part of this passion that I wanted to kind of share. When I was teaching my courses, I've been teaching for about 5 years now, different like in-person permaculture design courses. I would show some videos and a lot of people watched the videos and said, hey, I really like watching the videos. I learned a lot from them. And I said, okay. So I'm teaching these courses live and they really like the videos. So I thought, well, maybe I should do some more videos, and it turned into this, where I can actually offer a full online design course.
I think the first thing to do is to say welcome to everyone, welcome to the course, welcome to each other. Feel at home because you're on a big learning adventure. The second thing that's really nice is to take a deep moment of appreciation for the land that you're standing or sitting on, because it has given life to you and for so many people and species for tens of thousands of years since the earth first cooled. So there's a lot of gratitude for the earth that we're sharing.
Living earth, right? We're literally seeing like the blood of the earth being formed and crusting over and creating a new, more land, more surface to do something better.
My discovery of permaculture started because a friend told me I ought to do it. My first reaction was, no, I'm not going to do anything like that. Then I decided I should listen and I should learn. So I took a PDC and found it was completely in line with my whole feeling all my life that I had wanted to work with the earth. It was a little bit chaotic. Some of it was realistic. But you see, I'd come from agricultural science as my first study, so I had a good basis of science, which today we'd call siloed and then was called reductionist, with everything in little boxes. So you studied soil without a plant and a plant without an insect or a pollinator. It was all very separated, but also it added up to something to do with the earth and the love of it. And then I'd spent some time in overseas work where I found I was really inadequate and didn't have the knowledge or the skills for people who were hungry. All we'd learnt in agricultural science was to provide commodities for a world export market. It always felt a bit uncomfortable. Coming from agricultural science and overseas work where you couldn't really help people repair the earth and get food, so you can imagine I loved my permaculture design course.
My personal story begins back in middle school. I started to hear about the environment was somehow being destroyed. And I remember the painful feeling I had inside my heart when I heard about this, because I used to love being in nature. I still do, but I really, really mean love. And it was from that point I remember I'm going to do something for the environment. My mother introduced me to a book called Introduction to Permaculture. She said, you have to go and check out this permaculture thing. She was telling me it's good for like growing, because I was trying to grow something. As I opened that book and started to flow through it, wow, it blew my mind. That here is this complete, holistic, sustainable system that is by design bringing together every facet of my life that I'm so interested in. So I'm doing all these various things that permaculture discusses. So like having a clean, non-toxic environment in your home, growing your food, eating healthy, high quality organic foods, catching and storing your water, or making sure your water requirements are reduced and doing well, and your alternative energy. I was looking into all of that, studying it intensively, hours a day, every day. And then finally, bing, here's this actual system that brings it all together. So I just lit up and went for it. And there began this adventure over the last 7-8 years now of me just diving in deep, traveling the world, learning about permaculture, studying it intensively, and teaching it. Because I knew that which I wish to learn, teach, and I wanted to do my best that I can. And so I'm here expressing my passion to you that permaculture has changed my life by bringing it all together intelligently, having a beautiful philosophy that brings in ethics and principles and intelligently creates the design to make our lives fully sustainable, not just for ourselves, but our families and the world at large.
In about 1970, Bill Mollison, a founder of Permaculture Concept, was sick of life in Tasmania, and he said it was polluted, it was industrial, the forests were going, the streets were crowded, and that he didn't want to have anything to do with a materialistic society. So he took off the forest for a couple of years and sat in the forest. And for the first year he probably just sulked about the nature of the world and wasn't it terrible. So then Bill looked at it a bit closely, but the problems of the world outside were still with him. And he thought, why do we prune trees? Why do we feed soils? Why do we plant plants? Why do we do all this stuff? We've created an enormous load for ourselves. And really, is it necessary? Why do we pollinate? The whole thing is a bit mad. He looked at the biomass, which is the living amount of life in a soil, and he said, but we could create this, and why don't we therefore make agricultural systems that work as well as natural systems? So he worked it over a bit more, and then he met up with David Holmgren. The two of them did huge research on indigenous populations, probably in New Guinea as well as others. They widened it to look at housing as well as gardening. They started to take on a much bigger field, even looking at money and management systems. And they worked at it till finally they had something called permaculture. And permaculture today can't be easily defined because it consists of so many areas or domains which interact that we have to take them one by one and then put them together in a new framework. It's a bit like pulling out a jigsaw, throwing all the bits around, mixing them up, and then putting them back into a better pattern than they had before. But first, in the courses that they developed, Bill and David said we have to look at the world's problems and understand them to know how to repair them, because permaculture is essentially restoration. So they looked at what's happening to the world's soils and found something like 25 tonnes of soil is washed into rivers and seas when it is left bare. So rule 1 became always cover soils. And perhaps by the end of your course, you will look at a bare soil and say, that's terrible. Much the same as if someone took a layer of skin off your arm. And then they looked at the world's forests and saw that deforestation was related not only to oxygen, not only to keeping the air cooler, not only to keeping the water table down, but also to keeping water clean. So just imagine, you cut down the forests, where will there be a clean river? They looked at forests and the structure, how they worked with sunshine, how they worked with wind, how they worked with rain, and thought we should be able to build structural ecosystems in any climate that mimic a forest. But first we have to look at the problems of deforestation, the causes and the consequences, to know where to start to repair them and what we want at the end. They looked at water. Why was there so little good drinking water, whereas when Bill was a boy he could drink from every river in Tasmania without any toxins, without any possibility of pollution, and there were immense fish stocks that you could go fishing, and the rivers were these paradisical places where they were full of life. And today they're often just straightened out concrete channels that are full of nonsense and rubbish. So what happened? What happened to the rivers? What happened to the waters? And what's happening to the groundwater? What happens if you keep pumping bore water out of the ground long enough? So looking at every facet of water, and then that takes you through to is rainfall failing or is increasing. At this time, climate change in the early 70s was known and accepted by advanced scientists, and the Club of Rome was talking about limits to growth. So you had this nice confluence of the world's problems. In addition, there is ethical, trading, monetary and financial systems that contribute to a lot of destruction, are inherently destructive in themselves. So taking these domains of water, soil, forestry, biodiversity and trading systems, Bill and David put together a whole new piece of work that encompassed them all.
Alright, it's like this. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the sun rays shining, the source for life, yeah. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the sun rays shining.
This is a problem you get with permaculture, is when you have so much food, you have to worry about your food falling on your other food, which is a good problem to have.
It's pro-life permaculture. We're probiotic, not antibiotic. We tend to have a society right now that appears to be very antibiotic, meaning against life, as indicated because we're in the great sixth extinction wave on the planet. And so pro-life permaculture is for all species, for all generations, for all time. We're pro-life.
A life devoted to permaculture and healing the planet is extremely enjoyable.
Nothing's permanent. Permaculture is a constant play on words. All the principles we see are being enacted opposite of what they are, and I think that's why they were actually put in place. So when you say make the least change for the greatest effect, we often make the greatest change for the least effect. You know, seeing problem as opportunities, we often see the opportunities as problems. You know, it's this way of shifting. It's a social construct that we're decommissioning within our mind to create a system that can continue and thrive. And we're only successful when it goes systemic and all of our society can actually turn the system around. Because it doesn't matter what we do right now, some of planet Earth is going down, and all these other systems, all these other modalities of religion and capitalism and everything, they won't have any matter if we don't make it. And we have to make it. We have to make it through this time. This is a pinch point, a bottleneck. And you know, hopefully 30, 40, 50 years from now, they'll look back at this point and say, oh, it was those guys, those ones that were at that point, that saved the seeds, that built the systems, that nourished nature, that got us to this point.
If you think of your inner self as a garden, then you know that if you want to grow something in the garden, you've got to prepare the soil. So if you're going to embark on something new, you can stop and say, well, what do I need to do to prepare the soil? In nature, you generate fertility out of decay, out of death and destruction. So that's a lesson to us not to necessarily fear change or fear decay, but to know sometimes in life you have to let go of some things, let them go, let them decay in order for something new to be born and to regenerate.
We have come to a time in our lives where humanity has the capacity to make great changes in this world and also great calamities. I find that we have purpose to fulfill when we understand our role that can be a huge benefit to the direction in which our world is going. Give yourself this time now to really tune in and feel what it means to be a steward of the earth, one that can actually help care of the earth while making a difference in the world today, because it reduces his carbon footprint and increases the education and the examples necessary for us to live lightly on this earth today. World opportunities in permaculture. There are 4 very important aspects to understanding what is going on in the world and how we can be of benefit. And the reason we use the word opportunities rather than problems is because we see inherent in problems happening in the world opportunities for growth, development, and regeneration. And so, my regenerative friends, let's look at the top 4 reasons why permaculture has developed and come to fruition in the first place, so that we can get out and make a difference. Number 4, pollution. Consider all things that would disturb the mind and the body for you to be able to thrive well in this environment. Water, air, and land pollution are some of the first things that come to mind, I'm sure, by means of our transportation, agriculture pollution, large corporate industries as well that are creating this polluted space. But what about polluting the mind through the media, or ambient noise pollution and light pollution from our city at night that remove us from being able to see the stars? Also, nuclear waste from energy sources, electromagnetic fields from computers, Wi-Fi, and smart meters, as well as the medical waste, landfills, and toxic mining that is being created by our pollutive lifestyle. Get to know what is your contribution by means of what you purchase or what you do, and start making changes in your life now. Let's reduce pollution on our end so that the rest of the world can change. The third most important aspect to world opportunities that we can start addressing today, especially through our permaculture practices, is deforestation. An estimated 18 million acres of forest are cut down each year for primarily industrial purposes. By doing this, we lose biodiversity, air quality, weather stability, and increase species extinction and ecosystem collapse. The forest represents way more than trees waiting to be cut down for timber and paper. It is time to appreciate the inherent value of a forest ecosystem beyond a financial benefit. Much deforestation is also due to agricultural expansion because of poor farming practices that do not regenerate the soil. This leads us to our next very important world opportunity. The second most important aspect to our world opportunities is soil. The soil is your foundation. Human beings walked the earth and conducted energy and information from the soil for eons. Now, through urbanization, deforestation, mining, and poor farming practices, staggering percentages of topsoil is lost and happening around the world, everywhere. Once the soil has been disturbed, massive erosion from wind and rain can occur. Degradation with over-fertilization, chemicals, and compaction continues to impede our restoration efforts while increasing carbon emissions in the atmosphere. Yes, disturbing and destroying soil releases carbon in the atmosphere, lots of it. And in permaculture land management strategies, there is a strong emphasis on soil regeneration. And the more we connect to the soil, the more we connect to the earth. Our number one world opportunity that we really can make a difference in our own lives right now are the social dilemmas that we see right around us. We have placed these imaginary lines on the map, and in between those lines, human beings dominate the land masses. It is in our relating to the earth and each other that we see our greatest opportunity for change. Many of our governments preserve and regulate protected lands. However, they also give rights to remove, pollute, and degrade the vast majority of it. Also, our medical industries have not prioritized the importance of preventative strategies through natural means. Our school systems focus on developing consumer-centric workforce rather than a life force of people wanting to love nature. Our families and community connections have been divided up by laws and walls of disconnection. I invite you to step into a world of solutions to all of these concerns, and these solutions are given to us through permaculture.
What I didn't know then was that much of what I learned in 1986 was going to be further reinforced worldwide as the years passed. That Mollison and Holmgren were prescient. You could almost call it prophecy in the topics they chose and the evidence they used to advocate and develop permaculture. Everything they did has been supported and corroborated by later findings. However, since that PDC, I've discovered some things that were probably unimaginable to them at that stage, but which are happening now. Global warming, glacial melting, to the degree and speed these are occurring. I don't think they could foresee that. The megacity and refugees, both these areas have come as much land degradation has sped up. So what is permaculture? The words are very abstract. However, let's look at it. It's an ethical, regenerative food and social system. So it's going to cover the food and needs of humans and also society, which you can design to develop and maintain a culture way into the future without it becoming bland, as many cultures are. You capture and use all the potential of people in the land. So ultimately it's a way of learning about the world and its problems through offering solutions for repairing degraded, polluted and damaged ecosystems and redesigning unethical and destructive human systems which have caused the damage. No matter what your age, your culture, your status or skills, this field of study, permaculture, will inspire you with lasting change, and your quality of life will improve even if your quantity goes down.
I think permaculture has a lot to offer the world right now. We're deeply challenged to shift our way of living on very deep levels, from the way we produce our energy to our economic system to the way we grow our food, if we want to leave a viable world to the generations that come after us.
Permaculture is all about relationships, and in an urban environment, the most important relationships really are between the people, right? Because the environment, the earth, if we let her do her thing, she'll grow and overgrow the system and replenish herself. But it's really the piece that is missing usually is the people working together.
I am very excited when I see new people and young people getting turned on to permaculture. I think we need those skills of the inner work and the social work and the activist work to figure out how we make permaculture not just a nice little movement on the margins, but how it actually becomes the default, the building blocks, the foundation for a new way of living and a new way of doing things.
Permaculture is as much about the culture as anything, and while a lot of people think about ecosystems, we're very clear that if we don't have an ecosystem that is intact, the socio-political community structure, you won't have enough tenure and longevity in place to manage a perennial system. If human communities can't become perennial intergenerationally, then an idea of a perennial food forest will never work. So people want to just talk about plants, but you can't talk about them without the people.
Often people say, oh, I'm doing permaculture, or I'm not doing permaculture. What is permaculture? And it really comes down to these principles and ethics and how those are actually embodied and used. And we can call what we do anything and say it's this and say it's that, but then it comes down to a style. It comes down to a style and a perspective and an intention. And so if the intention's right, the principles are being employed, and you're actually building an ecosystem in which all systems and life can flourish, where you have equal share for people and place and planet, and you're reinvesting that surplus, not taking advantage of that surplus for your own benefit. That's really I think where it's key.
Permaculture is really more about verbs. It's about flows, it's about process, it's about relationship, it's about time and space. And then we have gardens and plants and ponds and nouns like that, gray water systems, roof water systems, groundwater recharge ponds, that perform functions that are then to be stacked in relative locations. We're always tracking performance-based criteria as designers. So we think about verbs, not nouns so much. If the process, the keystone processes of hydrology, of pyrology, of carbon, of life cycles, of procreation, have integrity through time and space, the quote noun, the individual, will have integrity is a fundamental premise that we design. Our relationship as a permaculture training facility, we've been doing 2-week permaculture design courses since 1995, one of the longest running permaculture education centers on the West Coast. And for us, it's critical that if we're going to be teaching people about how to do something, we have the ability to use first-person pronouns. So we get to say, in my experience, when I did, in our experience, when we did, when we made, when we planted, when we dug, when we built, we can speak from experience and not from book learning. And so the entire site here is a living experiment, demonstration, education, training facility where we bring lots and lots of people through for tours or for multi-day courses or 2-week permaculture courses. And there's alternative energy demonstrations, natural building demonstrations, green building demonstrations. There's water harvesting, we call conservation hydrology, rainwater harvesting, gray water systems, water conservation, roof water systems. There's the wildlife habitat, the wildlands of our 70 acres we manage. And there's obviously the food production system of annuals and perennials and food forest and composting, worm bins. And we just got approved the first compost toilet research pilot project that we'll be putting in our new guest houses. So we'll have both compost toilets being demonstrated up there with gray water systems and all roof water systems going to groundwater recharge in the guest housing space. So we're always trying to be humble about the transparency of our experiment and let people come and see what's working and what's not working and what can be tweaked. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, a demonstration's worth 1,000,000. And we're just loaded up with lots of demonstrations. And then there are places to convene groups that come together in different formats or pedagogies, if you will. And while there's the structural format of a didactic download, a speech, a talk, a lecture, we also are very much interested in what you might call a peripatetic pedagogy of permaculture, the walk and talk, the Socratic method, small breakout groups, design groups, each one teach one. And so we strive to teach to the multiple intelligences using project-based learning as other modalities. And so you can learn, your head can learn about it, but your hands want to learn about it, and ultimately your heart wants to learn about it. And along the way, we'd like your stomach to learn a few things. And then we'd like you to contribute some of that which you leave through our compost toilets and our urine diversion systems as well. So we're really interested in completing whole cycles from seed to seed and literally from garden to table to toilet back to soil food web. So we have our toiletries. Don't forget your toiletries when you come here, and you can use our toilet and we'll grow trees with it. And so that whole idea of I am that which I have not excreted is part of this key piece. And we're very interested in getting pragmatic, and it's not just DIY, do it yourself, it's TIY, think it yourself or think it ourselves as a collectivity. We're interested in the idea of emergent properties, where the whole of our permaculture is greater than the sum of the specific demonstration projects.
Some years ago, I thought The only thing worth doing really is living an ethical life, because it's creative and provides daily challenges, and I don't like monotony. So there's a bit of fun and challenge in living ethically. The next thing permaculture looked at was a number of principles. Principles are global. They apply to every culture and every landscape and every climate. So let's consider something like store energy. If you're in the hot tropics, the best thing you can do is store your energy in trees. If you are an Inuit and you want to live in an igloo, the best thing you can do is store energy in a round building, curved building in an ice frame that's going to hold the heat for you. So it doesn't matter from tropics to deserts. Catch and store energy is a critical strategy in permaculture, which applies to all people, and you can go back, it applies to all time. So you can take each principle and you can examine it for its universality. However, from there you go to a strategy. So if your principle is to constantly feed soils, keep an eye on soil nutrition or it runs down like us, then how do you maintain soil nutrition in the tropics? Obviously, you're going to use ground creepers, you're going to use long life cover crops, but you're not going to do compost, because in that heat it gets used up too quickly. If you're in a cool temperate climate, you're going to use compost because it can mould away all winter and you won't lose the nutrients. There's an appropriate way of doing it according to biomes or local areas. And so much destruction is caused by transferring these strategies to the wrong areas. So the Northern European strategy of cattle on grass for dairy or beef, you know what it's doing to the Amazon. And you know what's happening in parts of Asia where they're reducing that to rice or corn, the forests. So if you take a strategy out, if it's the wrong strategy, it becomes destructive, even though the principle's right. A confusing issue is how many principles are there. And you probably are aware of David Holmgren's 12 principles. However, Mollison started with a slightly different set. Now, whichever you like, be prepared to test them for yourself and the situation you're in and work with those that matter to you. I think some are core: produce no waste. Forest produces no waste. It's a challenge and it's fun. Catch and store energy. That is an ongoing concern all the time. You will find your own and your favourite one, and after a while, and this is a warning, they'll invade your brain. So thinking like a permaculturalist is often thinking of principles. So that will guide your behaviours, and in the end they're all ethical. So I think you're going to enjoy this session on ethics and principles, and in the end your teacher will value your work and your final assignment by your ability to apply and integrate the principles, not by your knowledge of gardening. So how can you think in terms of principles and make them work to rebuild a different society and a restored earth? And I think you're going to enjoy it. Thank you.
The underpinnings of permaculture, ethics, and principles. Yeah. Let's take a look at all of these various principles first, shall we? And see what we can do, have, change, rearrange, design, and recline right now. So let's take a look, huh? There's 12 of them. Let's start with the first one. Observe and interact. Put your permaculture goggles on and take a look around. See what you can find. Yeah? Step into a new vision of the world where you observe all the mystery with curiosity and care. Interact in ways that help you feel connected, while at the same time reframing the mind's ideas of separation and scarcity to integration and abundance.
Oh yeah, take a look, take a look, take a look. Read the landscape like a book. Interact, low impact, get your feedback when you take a look around.
Catch and store energy. Energy in all forms permits us to produce the results we want. And if we can learn what resources are available to us and store them for times when they are not plentiful, we shall make our way to a more resourceful and sustainable future. Catching energy from the sun in the form of food, wood, heating, or through biological resources is a start. Be sure to consider your own body's energy system. Fuel that with the other renewable energy sources and you have a sustainable system.
Yeah, catch and store energy every day, any way that you can with care. Yeah, catch and store energy every day, any way that you can while it's there.
Obtain a yield. Harvest weeds, neighborhood sidewalk fruits, leftover wood scraps, and sawdust from a woodlot. And with that, build soil, health, and a better quality of life while stepping into new horizons. Be creative and thrifty with the overload of waste streams that can easily meet many of your needs. Start rewarding yourself now by seeking out surpluses that encourage your eco-conscious connections. The abundance is out there. Go get it.
Sustain yourself and yield. Sustain your energy. Don't drain yourself. Maintain yourself. Obtain yourself and yield.
Apply self-regulation and accept feedback. Life challenges and triumphs give us an invaluable feedback and help us understand our earthly limits. Be open to accept feedback from your land, your learning experiences, your mentors, and most importantly, from your heart by trusting in your own intuition. We can form an intelligent system of self-regulation leading to desirable outcomes when we bring awareness to our actions.
Now it's time to check yourself and stop pointing fingers out, because self-responsibility is what it's all about.
Use and value renewable resources and services. Animal use over fossil fuels for transportation, farm work, and fertilization will bring us right back to old-time renewable strategies. It would also help us make more friends in the animal kingdom while reducing our carbon footprint. This will imprint a new way of relating to the natural world, reducing the use of consumable non-renewable resources and increasing the quality of local environments as well as our life.
Excuse me. Use and value clean, renewable services and resources. Once again. Clean, renewable services and resources. It's time to do away with fossil fuels and just get back to the soil. Because let's face it, it's the end of oil.
Produce no waste. The mentality of throwing something away needs to come to pass. There is no away. It just accumulates to irresponsible amounts of pollution to the planet. Instead, increase the amount of biodegradable products, waste-free, reusable packaging, and nutrient cycling methods into your daily activity. Identify your waste streams, then turn them into resources, repair them, or change what you purchase altogether into no-waste solutions.
The only water we had to use was in a tank coat from the rain, cause there's no such thing as waste. Only stuff in the wrong place. No, there's no such thing as waste. Misusing water's a disgrace.
Design from patterns to details. We naturally understand and see patterns like the wind direction, sun movements, rain conditions, structural integrity, and plant growth. What about people systems? Are there patterns in our health, education, community development? You bet they are. And once you know them well, you can fill in the details to create a good design.
Around, around, around. It's just the way it happens. Yeah, round, around, around. Always in patterns. Yeah.
Integrate rather than segregate. It feels good to be connected to the natural world and each other. Connect education methods with gardening, community development with neighborhood improvement initiatives like tool libraries, green spaces, and community gardens. Find multifunctional ways to integrate regenerative human systems, and you're on your way to a permaculture-based lifestyle.
Let's get together. Let's get together.
Use small and slow solutions. This small solution is actually really big. Let's take our time, slow down and design, and implement only what we can appropriately take care of and do well. The number one challenge I have seen most projects around the world is people spreading themselves too thin, too fast, with too little resources. Make it a priority to only invest your energy into projects that reduce maintenance, are non-resource intensive, and expand sustenance.
Take it slow. Make it small and slow to avoid the confusion. Use small and slow solutions. Yeah.
Use and value diversity. Don't put all your eggs in one basket is the phrase to remember for this one. To be resilient in your design, diversify what and how you grow things. Your water harvesting methods, your financial resources, as well as your education streams and cultural connections. The more diversity, the more you can relate to the many different facets of life. Variety is the spice of life.
Variety's the spice of life. There's many different kinds. Many different places. Many different times. Many different faces. Many different varieties. There's many people in society. There's many different opinions on the way to do things. Many songs to sing.
Use the edges and value the marginal. Urban empty lots, green strips along the railway, and balconies get marginalized when they can be productive. Valuing marginalized indigenous wisdom is especially important. Consider the edge of the pond, driveway, fence, or even the edginess of transitioning into a new career or doing non-contemporary practices such as alternative energy or medicine. Living on the edge can give us a new perspective on life. Take advantage of it.
Because the edge is where it's at, and is the most productive place. And my mama always said, if you're not living on the edge, then you're taking up too much space.
Creatively use and respond to change. Even some of the best designs I have seen out there need to adapt to changes unidentified beforehand. Rather than seeing the problem of change, respond with enthusiasm to formulate an even more resilient system and share that knowledge with those who are trying to do the same. A change in what you eat when eating local, reducing the energy usage, or assisting food banks can all be a great place to expand your creativity. Change your thoughts, change your life.
Change is there, make the most of it. Might as well use it for your benefit. If your food's gone bad, you better compost it. When there's no more planes, build a pirate ship for sail the seas. You can do as you please. Oh, but only if you know you got to improvise your way through change.
Earth is my body, water my blood, air is my breath, fire is my spirit. Earth is my body, water my blood, air is my breath, and fire is my spirit. We're learning to be not just stewards of the earth, but but to recognize that we are nature itself, as earth being my body, water my blood, air my breath, fire my spirit. And so we have these ethics, and these ethics kind of define the difference between the sciences that we are introducing in these classes and the way scientists go about studying and understanding nature. These ethics give us a means to focus on caring of the earth, which is one of the ethics of permaculture. Ask yourself, how do I care for the earth? What things do I do? What actions do I take that lead to an embetterment of the earth, to make it better? As earth is my body, I see it as my body, my actual cells, that I'm developing myself through consuming the foods, breathing the air, drinking the water of the earth. How am I caring for it? In what way? Where does my food come from? In what way am I reducing my carbon footprint? All these various things that we can start looking at and identifying. Is it caring of the earth, or is it actually causing the further depletion of natural resources? Next, they say care of the people, or I like to say care of all beings, right? Because we have a world, a globe, a Gaia, that is one symbiosis of all kinds of species that are here to live and have a right to live on this earth, healthy, well, without pollution or poison. And so how are we caring of all earthly beings on this planet in such a way that it is allowing us to be in harmony, right? Be in harmony. And if we begin with the earth, we begin with the very things that nurture our bodies, that nurture our hearts, then we can, of course, extend that by giving to others. And so the third ethic is to redistribute this surplus, this extension of the care that comes from caring for people and caring for the earth. So what can you give? Is it music? Is it a smile? Is it a heart-filled hug? Or is it more than that? Are you actually offering your financial means, the funds that you are developing or creating? Is that sustainable, right? Where you get your money from and where the money goes. How are you offering this extension to life so that the giving, the cycle is happening, right? Is taking place. How are you creating that system that is closed, that is cultivated, that is regenerated beyond this cultivation, right? Because of course we're learning from nature, and nature itself is doing its thing without us and with us. And of course we can be a part of that the more that we allow ourselves to realize that we are a part, not just a part, but are the actual elements. As earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, fire my spirit.
One of the biggest lessons I learned is find out what grows in your area and grow that. Don't try and, adjust your diet to your location. Don't try and adjust your location to your diet, because you're gonna fight an uphill battle, and you don't want to fight nature. You want to work with nature. And so I've come to love the sweet potato, kalo, ulu, which is breadfruit, turmeric and ginger, freshly for spicing my meals, coconut, lilikoi, starfruit, mountain apple, Haitian star apple, jaboticaba. These things all grow without any effort. So why would we, try to grow tomatoes? We really need big tomatoes. That's a Western mindset. But here we kind of go with the flow.
Commitment to working together on our relationships. So we use catch and store energy on the farm to catch and store human energy. And we do that not in terms of where you're going to do your work, but in terms of how we cross each other's paths. So if we cross each other's paths a lot, then that means it's really hard to hold a grudge, because you have to go to the same kitchen that's where our food is. We have to go to the same office. You have to use that main house where our common space is in order to do so many different things that as we cross each other's paths, we do a check-in and we see how our energy is with the other person's energy. And that really helps us to maintain balance in the community. So our main house not only catches and stores all of our water and our electricity, but it catches and stores the human energy and the human potential. We also have instigated several systems. So we have a daily check-in. We also have a business meeting once a week and a heart share once a week. And these things are established in order to maintain the human connection. Because with the human connection comes the stability and balance to create the harmony with the land.
Even just right here next to the cannabis garden, it's kind of a little spice zone. So we've got nutmeg, which is a slow growing spice. We have cinnamon. We've got a fig mixed in there. We've got our red hot peppers, Tabasco, also called Hawaiian chilies, cherimoya, more cinnamon on the back, all adjacent to compost area, adjacent to cannabis, adjacent to our chicken pens. So in many ways, you see that kind of edge effect that we so often talk about in permaculture. So I can harvest from the chickens, I use the excess soil and turn over soil from the compost into the cannabis beds, and then vice versa, all while feeding these nice spice trees along the way.
Like thinking about what are we going to do about this bed, and the problem is the solution. So the problem is plants are growing in the bed. Well, then let's just work with nature, be nature working, and go with the flow. So that's sort of an example of how permaculture would work. You know, you don't keep fighting it, or let's spray herbicides on there to kill the plants so we can plaster the bed and have it be this perfect tickety-boo bed. Let's just let it evolve into what it wants to be.
Permaculture, one of our principles is that diversity brings resilience to a system. That's true in a forest or a garden where we like to plant polycultures because they're more resistant to pests and diseases, and the different plants in them can give fertility and different benefits to other plants. But how do we also value that kind of diversity in our human systems and our social systems? We live in a world today where it seems like the whole world is coming apart and at each other's throats around the question of, are we going to actually celebrate diversity, or are we going to use our human diversity as a reason to oppress one another and wall each other out? And I think permaculture can bring something to that discussion that helps us understand that diversity actually is a strength. It makes us more resilient, it makes us more intelligent, it gives us perspectives that we don't have if everybody in the movement kind of comes from the same background. And also things that come from nature awareness, coming into our senses, coming into a state where you can open up and be present and observe what's going on around you and listen to what nature is teaching you without being distracted by all that inner chit-chat that we all run all the time.
Yeah, so this is kind of one of the David Holmgren principles of from the marginal to the center is what he calls it. It's a reworked older one, but he invented it back in the 70s. So in 2004, David Holmgren wrote Permaculture, Pathways Beyond Sustainability. So this is just a larger metaphor of the whole garden, that we started over there in the original garden, the steepest part of the whole campus, and we made something really beautiful in just one semester time by putting compost and coffee grounds and horse manure and digging swales to capture rainwater. I'll explain that in a second. Planting the fruit trees and shrubs, natives, just all mixing it together. Annuals, really nice. So they loved it. Like, wow, that's something different. So we went from the most marginal to now we are the most center. Like, you can't miss an acre garden with 350 species. Like, there's different gardens that other classes have made and other professors and other whatever. I'm not trying to take ego for it, whatever, but with like 900 students designing this for 15 years, we have just blown it off from being a marginal thing to we're the most interesting botanical thing in this whole 7 acres. It's only 1 acre, but the whole campus is 7 acres, and there's a lot of, nice flowers here and there, but it's like, it's not an ecosystem. They're not thinking about rain, they're not thinking about soil fertility. Like another margin to center thing, I started mulching here 15 years ago. They were still applying pesticides in other parts of the campus. now they finally caught the environmental bug that the main campus, this is when I knew it was a big victory what we were doing here. So, I'm only here 5 hours a week, but they come and people look at what you're doing because it's so weird and different. And anyway, the regular landscapers got permission from their bosses to get wood chips like this delivered to their sites, and they're sheet mulching and they're not using the chemicals. And it just needed someone to show them the example, because unfortunately for so long, pesticides and herbicides were like, oh, this is the latest scientific innovation. It's like, well, it was, but it was a big backward step to nuke the soil and kill off the soil food web, right?
Yeah, I have my neighbor's property, which is really exciting as well at my access. It was not used that much, and I said, hey, here's what I'm doing. Come look at my systems. Here's my experience. Here's what I can do. Is that okay? And they said, yes, go for it, do that. And then took a few years when I was like, hey, can I run my chickens and ducks here? They're gonna do pest control, there's gonna be no snails coming in and doing damage to your garden. They're entertaining, whatnot. They produce eggs, all this kind of stuff, and they'll just have that much more to eat. I won't have to clean my coop as quickly, right? That kind of thing. So everybody wins, and chickens have more expanded areas to eat.
We are maximizing our edge here in the urban environment, and the fact that this would normally just be an unproductive space on top of a roof, and we've displaced a whole ground level. This is about a 1/4 acre on a 1/2 acre site.
Care for the earth. Find your way, find your niche, find the very thing that sparks life into you and says, yes, this is what I want to do, right? Permaculture gives this overall encompassing way of living out these ethics and principles, but what specifically resonates with you? Of course you can grow all your food, of course you can generate your own power, catch your own water, and do all these various things in your own home or in your own environment, farm, whatever it is. But in what specific way do you want to offer your gifts and care of the people and the other species on this planet? And with that, you are already in that space of offering the gifts that you have to give. Is it an abundance of food? Is it an abundance of information, knowledge, to allow others to have the will to be able to move forward in life? Is it an extension of some kind of arts and crafts, or some kind of tools or technology? What is your gift? Finding that, but in such a way that these ethics are actually in mind, will give us the means to say, yes, we're practicing a evolution of our species in permanence, right? In a permanent cultural way. And so I want to discuss some of the relationships that we perceive as the unique aspects to an ecosystem, but also very interesting in design. So you have the relationship that is of space. How are plants spaced in such a way that they're all inhabiting the area without competing, or they are all taking up the space in such a way that the space is locked in with the plants that you want? And so I'm here at a botanical gardens, and as you can see, that they really took the time to lock in as much space as possible, so that when they're here maintaining and pruning and weeding, it's very minimal, because they've actually limited the amount of space for other plants to grow and maximize the potential of the space. So when you're designing, consider the same things. How can I maximize that potential so that I'm seeing productivity and I'm seeing the ecosystem form and shape on its own eventually, as I step out of the system and interact with it, with, of course, harvesting, providing food for ourselves, or just limited interaction. You can put more time to what you actually want to do.
What I realized when I started taking care of the land here was that the land has an ecosystem, just like we do. We have an inner ecosystem. In fact, if you start studying health, one of the ways to think about health is that our body has the same things that the soil does in it. In fact, we're sort of like trees turned inside out. So a tree would be planted in soil, whereas the soil, we would just be eating sort of the nutrition and extracting in our guts and pooping it out the other end.
So natural ecosystems are known as closed loop systems. And when you have the relationship of a symbiotic form, you're going to start seeing those loops being closed. Because symbiotic relationships are the ones where there is a giving and a receiving that is necessary in order for that ecosystem to thrive. And so you have the ones that we normally discuss, which is the nitrogen fixation symbiotic relationship, where you have the rhizobium root nodules on the plant's root system, and the plants are providing carbon for the bacteria that's on the roots, and the roots are fixating nitrogen from the atmosphere. Yes, there's air in the soil, especially if it's a good soil, that is coming from the atmosphere and providing it to the plant. So it gets nitrogen in exchange for photosynthesizing and absorbing carbon from the air and giving that back to the bacteria. So this relationship is symbiotic. We have symbiotic relationships as well, where you have trees that provide fruit, and that fruit is specifically designed and created in a beautiful, colorful, lusciously delicious way for us to consume that and then take that seed and then continue to spread that seed, to plant it and perpetuate the life of that plant. So there's many forms of symbiotic relationships that are an important key element in your designing of your own ecosystem. So consider what that is. Another relationship is a beneficial relationship. So we have these three: symbiotic, spatial, and beneficial. And when you think of beneficial, think of like companion planting. So you have plants that are benefiting one another based on, it could be a spatial relationship, maybe you're just suppressing weed growth. It could be a nutrient relationship, maybe you're chopping and dropping, cutting plants back and feeding it to plants next to it. It could be a relationship of pest management, to where one plant actually attracts beneficial insects so that the other plants have these beneficial insects around and they have less pest problems. Or it could be a relationship of ambiance and beauty. Maybe the benefit is for you, that you're enjoying the space and there's a relationship of you wanting to care and nurture those plants. And so The Botany of Desire is a great documentary that discusses this relationship that plants have created within us to want to engage, to want to cultivate them. And so think of those relationships in nature, including your own, and how you're a part of that.
So like we saw earlier with the tree asters as an insectary plant, or for the hummingbirds, we're often gardening for beneficials and just wildlife in general, and that collaborative sense of the fact that permaculture as a design method is trying to figure out how to do ecological emulation and create conditions conducive for life.
Life is meant to be like a field of flowers, heavenly showers of love, dancing in the wind for hours as the powers above motion me to move within, metals akin to a spectrum of light, a reflection of diversity in colors and heights, like the sun and blue sky shining ever so bright, a radiance to behold and receive in sight, flowing nectars of life, butterflies in delight, sucking sweetness from stems and spreading pollen alike, roots hugging the earth, earth loving the roots. As the soil life brings life to every shoot, another flower is born. Let that flower be you, blooming into your beauty and beginning anew. Functions of a healthy ecosystem are to create and support life, to clean air, to clean water, and sometimes clean up toxins through various forms of natural filtration systems, to regulate the atmosphere through cycling carbon and nitrogen, to build soil together with soil microorganisms, to manage pest and disease, to perpetuate themselves, to create highly integrated structures, and to become closed-loop systems. So to have a closed-loop system, you know that it's fully integrated, it's not segregated, it's producing no waste, it's maximizing the potential for diversity, it's valuing the edges and the niches, it's doing all the principles at once. A lot of these principles are rooted and understood from the way nature works. And so consider your principles when you're doing your design and creating a closed loop system. Observe and interact. Is it catching and storing energy? Find your way to produce this ecological function, not just on the landscape, but also in your home, in your business, in your educational systems. Look at the metaphorical field of understanding what you can do and how you can improve your life as well as the life that you interact with. Human, animal, any form. Now, in every healthy ecosystem, you will find these three things: a producer, a consumer, and a decomposer. Now, most elements in the ecosystem are interrelating with one or two, or are represented as one or two. So I myself, for example, consume, and I can produce, and there's bacteria and other forms in me that decompose and then offer fertilizer, right, to decompose further. And so I have all of those primary parts. However, when I'm involving myself into the ecosystem, what I'm considering is what do I want to produce, right? Meaning, like, what trees do I want to plant in order for me to be a primary consumer of what the ecosystem is yielding. So obtaining a yield by understanding what are the producers, and then how many producers are necessary in your design so that you can be a relevant consumer and be a part of that closed loop system. So go out into, a park or into your backyard or natural environment and look for the consumers, right? Which ones are the primary or secondary consumers? Look for the producers, which ones are providing the various forms of food, and the little guys, the decomposers. Normally when you go to a regular farm, you will find that there are some missing components, right? Missing elements. And the one that gets neglected the most is the decomposers. Yes, they are heavily sprayed with chemicals, and the earth is stripped so that the soil is absolutely exposed to the sun and elements, and the bacteria, the fungi, the various protozoa, all the different types of life in the soil gets destroyed. And this is our foundation. And so if we're really serious about wanting to create an ecosystem form of farm, designed permaculturally, we need to really take root in developing our decomposers, that they're thriving, because they're the ones that are cycling back that nutrients and perpetuating the system.
The plans of this life is a dance, yes, sacred romance. You do respect our life is sacred, but the truth is we are co-creating this, co-creating with the mama Gaia.
Words never sounded so lush. I love the lullaby, liberated and such. In harmonium, feel the warm rush of blood circulating in your cheeks when you blush. So much to praise in this new transition. Change your thoughts, change your life, new vision. Easy mode, I choose to live life simply. Be bold, behold, yo, the cup is half empty, or half full, whichever one you manifest. A handful of givens from my heart rest. Rest assured, tranquility's my inner essence. Effervescence sizzling your soul into presence. Awakening the coil of the kundalini, seeping up and rising out just like a lamp genie. Hey, if I did this every day, I'd be a lamp genie. But between you and me is possibility of life. Yeah.
Simplicity of life, always simply is divine.
The simplicity of life. Okay, let's see how permaculture becomes ecology and merge these two for you so that you can see that we can live a life of pure sustainability. We have here a home that was designed in South Florida by my good friend Carolina Alzate with Permaculture Americula. And I did the implementation of the design. Quite a few things have changed as we implemented, but I'd like to go through a few things here that really creates permaculture and ecology merging, seeing closed loop systems as best as we can. So this is a 1/4 acre lot, and this home was designed as a LEED Platinum certified home. That is the highest green building certification that you can get. And it also has vastu principles in mind as well. So we're thinking about not only how the home is built green, but also how the energy and the flow and the feel of the space is for its inhabitants. And the high energy efficiency was an important part of this LEED Platinum design. So of course there's lots of LED lights and low energy appliances, and of course we have a solar grid above the house, and that feeds into the grid, and so it's on grid, but they have made it so energy efficient that they're actually at a net zero bill as far as their bill is concerned. And so during the day they feed the grid, and at night the grid feeds back to the home. With a little bit of batteries, when there is a power outage, they stay with power, and that's good design. The home has walls that were designed with what's called SIP panels, and these high insulation panels are fantastic for the sense of good insulation for the reduction of energy needs for cooling the home. This is in a subtropical environment, as well as the home is poured concrete between these SIP panels, and with the foundation as well as the walls and the roof being poured, you have a very solid monolithic structure. And in South Florida we get hurricanes, and so this home is not going anywhere. Super solid and ready for disaster. So this is designed for disasters. Also, you have high water efficiency, and so low flush toilets, low flow sinks, gray water systems, and a rain catchment system for the roof where 4,000 gallons of water is caught underground. And so we have a really nice reserve for backup for the drought season. And so when there's drought, there's no doubt we got plenty of water for usage for the home and for the space itself. And you're coming outside, you will see that there's a beautiful looking mandala garden. Now this garden, this vegetable garden, what we call Zone 1, we actually turned it into a more simplified keyhole garden. And this keyhole garden is better than just a row garden because you can use maybe a third more of the space by reducing the access to the garden bed itself and maximizing the potential of growth for your annual crops. And so yeah, we have a beautiful annual crop garden there, and as well as a herb spiral. Herb spirals are quite cool. We talk about that more in later classes, and how we can efficiently grow. There's a whole class on Zone 1. Moving to further in the backyard, you see Zone 2. And in Zone 2, we call our food forest. She has designed it as kind of a shape of a womb. So exiting the home, coming into this food forest, we're coming into the nurturing part of the property that provides an abundance of food. And I'm talking about abundance. There's lychees and mangoes and avocados and jackfruit and sugar apple and white sapote, mame sapote, jabuticaba. There's banana circles and papayas. There's even a drier zone where we have jatropha and pomegranate and dragon fruit and chaya, and just a whole intermix of a forest of food. And of course, underneath that, you have pigeon pea and pineapples and mulberry and sweet potato and katuk and passion fruit, raspberries. There's coconuts in the above story. There's so many things in this very small backyard. So it's amazing what you can do in the back of the home. And all of these is primarily the design, so you have this perennial, forevermore food in your backyard. There's nothing like just walking a few steps out of your house and you're seeing the Garden of Eden right before you. Amazing. And of course, within that Garden of Eden, we want spaces that are celebratory and that are enabling us to enjoy it more than just the food itself. So you see this beautiful pond that is back there and a fire pit for ceremonies, and there's some sitting spaces, and a lot of entertainment is a part of this design so that we can enjoy our spaces fully. There is a alley cropping area. We'd consider this Zone 3. This is where we get our bulk foods from, like yucca, malanga, sunflower, jicama, corn, beans, and squash. There is just a prolific amount of food being grown, and that is the focus, right? Food, not yards. This is in a regular suburban area, and when people see this, they get blown away. And the ecology, remember, like I said, has these three components, right? The consumer, which is the person living at the home, the producer, look at this abundance of food being produced, and the decomposers. And so all the yard waste and the compost from the home gets cycled back through either a worm bin system that we have there, or the banana circle, which we compost all the waste and yard waste there, or being fed to the chickens, for example, when the chickens are implemented into the design. It is closed. There is cycling of nutrients. Things are being brought together. Other things for the design in the future, and we want to implement it once everything gets mature. We can put bees in there and have hives for honey. Of course, the chickens eventually to reduce the amount of pests, weeds, and give eggs. And we're going to create like a living fence on the edges and trellis most of the fences that are already in place. Mushroom cultivation. There is so much that can be produced. In the front, we have a driveway that is actually permeable and has native plants growing in between, so when it rains, water stays in place. There's no runoff on this property. It is caught, stored, synced, and kept on the land. And there's mostly natives in the front, so we have butterfly gardens and we have hummingbird attractors and pollinator attractors there, and lots of native plants, so that we are incorporating the environment, taking care, nurturing the environment, taking care, nurturing us. That's what permaculture is all about. I hope this inspires you. Alright, it's like this.
We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the sun rays shining, the source for life, yeah. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the sun rays shining, the source for life. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the windmills blowing, blowing strong. Come on. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the windmills blowing, blowing strong. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the rain clouds pouring, the source for life. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the rain clouds pouring, the source for life. We gonna slow it down, spread it out, sink and store. Slow it down, spread it out, sink and store. We gonna look at it, care for it, build relationships. Look at it, care for it, build relationships. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the land slopes holding on. Yeah, yeah. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the land slopes holding on. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the plant world growing strong. Come on. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the plant world growing strong. We got our hands in the soil, our hearts filled with light, an abundant source of water bodies doing it right. We got our hands in the soil, our hearts filled with light, an abundant source of water bodies doing it right. We got our water bodies high above, water bodies. We got our water bodies by the home, water bodies. I said our water bodies like the flow, water bodies. So let it flow, let it flow. Permaculture thing going on. We got the eco homes and buy your domes. Come on. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the eco homes and buy your domes. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the rich earth compost cycling on. We got this permaculture thing going on. We got the rich earth compost cycling on. In abundance, yeah, we living in abundance. Let me see you in abundance. Let me see you in abundance. We living in abundance. We living in abundance. Move your body 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 in abundance.